goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. Da 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 da. What's my good chair? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a few minutes to get those notifications out. Let people know that I've gone live. I have no laptop still, and we're working on it, and my life is moving forward, and I'm getting things done, and I'm trying to relax, right? I'm trying to just let go of the situation and trust that it's in good hands, and we're going to be up and running in no time. But at the same time, I hold myself accountable. I show up here. I get to say it fresh like a loaf of bread every single day. And that's a promise that I can make. And I have been challenged in keeping that promise this week. Truly challenged. And yet I'm holding myself accountable. And yet I'm showing up here every single day, right? I'm grateful that I know how to keep my word to myself at the very least. Sometimes we don't have a choice. Sometimes those hiccups, those obstacles, right? If I didn't do a little bit of adapt and conquer, right? Let go of that control a little bit, that my live show has got to look a certain way. Hello, Kathy. Hello, Kathy, dear. Thank you so much for popping in today. Today we're picking a new word. I'm a little bit nervous, right? Can notice the patterning in the words that we've been picking in the past. How many weeks now we've been going? 9 weeks. 9 weeks. And we've got 9 words down packed. And just in the sequencing of how those words have been popping up, right? I've even forgotten where that word forgiveness is. I'm actually even a little bit nervous for when I do pick up that word. If I even pick up that word, I have pages of words here, right? But we're only going to pick 54 of them. And of those 54 words, we're going to go deep all week. Today's Monday, right? I could have written a post and put up one of my landscape photos from my trip. But we're in this. We're in this. What is it? It's a cycle, isn't it? Right? We're trying to get through some heavy topics. And I suspect when we get through these 54 words, right, that maybe something absorbed. Maybe these questions and these sometimes lack of movement that we make, that maybe we'll be able to find a few solutions for ourselves, a few understandings, right? A few tools for that tool belt. And, people to realize that, we're not in this alone, that we're all having an experience. And even though to each of us that experience looks a little bit different, right? It's still an experience that's unique to us, right? And so unique that, right? It's just yours. But there are commonalities in that. And I've noticed it just in the lessons that I get from some of the people that I respect, right? That I've been making some movement myself, but making that movement in the evidence that I see in other people's movement, that we can find commonalities in that, and we can find comfort, right? That we're not the only ones going through this, feeling our way around, right? Right? Taking in some lessons. And again, sometimes those lessons are different. I think for most part they are, and it's all dependent on the programming, right? Our upbringing, those people that we've surrounded ourselves with throughout our lives. And if you're anything like me, you've probably had a lot of people pop in and pop out of your life for lots of different reasons. Lots of different reasons. And lots of times, when people leave our lives, we go straight to blaming ourselves as to, oh my goodness, what did I do? How did I offend them? How did I tick them off? What did I do wrong? Right? What's wrong with me? Right? I'm very grateful that I have had that assurance in myself that I didn't so much, and maybe that's because I didn't have so much in the way of expectations of how I could make some movement on my own, that that I just felt that my crappy little life was going to be my crappy little life, and it's just going to be one crappy little experience after another, intermittently, with these amazing experiences that somehow still found their way to cross my path. And for me to have enough tools and enough confidence, right? And enough of that to stop and go, ooh, what was that? Right? And delve in a little bit deeper and have fun with those experiences. Where at one time those experiences would have been frustrating, right? Change is frustrating, right? Making decisions is frustrating. Holding ourselves accountable quite often could be frustrating because, right, we like to problem solve. And when things start going good in our lives, right, we sometimes don't think we are deserving of those good things that are coming into our lives, and we'll purposely put ourselves back in that state, that self-sabotaging that we do, so that we can mess things up, just so that we can put it back together. And I've done that lots. Okay, we're not going to waste any time today. Let's pick that word. Let's start this week off, right, doing my live show on my phone, right? My laptop is in good hands, and I'm hoping to get it back in the next couple of days. It's Thanksgiving here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and I am grateful for having other ways to show up here, fresh like a loaf of bread, right? That I have those understandings that even though it might look a little bit different, that, right, I can play around a little bit and give myself that little bit of rope, right? Understanding this is a little bit unusual the way that I'm showing up, right? But I'm showing up. I'm showing up and I'm doing the best that I can, right? And I'm grateful for that company that pops in and keeps me company, right? And it's not a misery love company, because I'm not coming here with any kind of misery, right? Right? Those days of giving it to other people to hold, right? I'd like to say that it's done, but how can I be certain, right? Because obstacles, right? Frustrations, hiccups, failures, right? All those things that can be set in front of our path to trip us up. And they will on occasion trip us up. Guaranteed. I've been bumbling along all day, slowly getting things done, finding that I have some realizations of, number one, how much time I actually do spend online, right? That I can do just as well sometimes, I think, just in contemplation, because I've spent quite a bit of time in the past few days, because I haven't had, well, I have had access to topics and stuff here, and I have been taking them in, but I've been taking that opportunity, right? Because I would be this deep into editing videos if I had had my laptop. And so I find that I have some time to, right? I got donations ready to go back to work again. I took 2 great big garbage bags of donations last week, and I've got 3 bags of recycle, and I've just started my fourth one, and it worked out pretty well. It was a little heavy with the big garbage bags last week, but now I'm using recycle bags. So every day next week I'll take a recycle bag of donations, and I've cleaned out my house a little bit, emptied my closets a little bit, right? Helped a few people out, hopefully. Helped the company that helps to put the roof over my head, right? In that loyalty that I have, because this is the job that puts the roof over my head. And in the moment, my loyalty, right? Well, not in this moment, but when I'm not working, I'm shut off from my job 100%, unless I get a phone call to say we need you. But it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen very no, very much. They know I'm pretty wrapped up in my brand. That I'm bringing full time effort into that movement that I'm making, right? And I don't think I could do as well in the job that I'm doing, right? In doing this, if I did work those extra hours, those extra days. I created my work life to accommodate, right, what's going on in my personal life. And not only that, my personal life, because I was taught my purpose comes from my pain, my purpose is tied up in my personal life, right? My dreams, my aspirations, those things that I'm moving towards, right? They're wrapped up. They're part of my personal life because, again, I show up fresh like a loaf of bread. So no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm on a road exploration or I'm exploring the inside or I'm having conversations, right? Or even just in my everyday, day to day, those same conversations, those same interactions, same but not same, right? Because again, we accommodate in our understanding that we can find a commonality with everybody, that we can adjust ourselves a little bit to help people feel a little bit more comfortable, right? In having those conversations. And it starts with conversations. I mean, at the very least, that's how it started with me. Wow. Did it start with conversations? I'd have to say it probably did, right? And it probably started a very, very, very long ago. But, those conversations still happened and they still sunk in, even though, right? They didn't sink in, right? Grateful. And that's a great word to have here on Thanksgiving, is to be grateful for where I'm at, right? To be grateful that I was able to find another solution to be able to come in live today, right? Being grateful to be able to absorb lessons when I can clearly see in this world that there are people that aren't even aware that there's an opportunity to take lessons in, right? In whatever it is, right? We do baby steps here. We do baby steps here because we don't necessarily always know, right? Where we're going, what's on the road ahead of us, right? And because of our programming, because of our upbringing, because we're highly sensitive and empathic, right? It's not like we're special needs or anything, right? But in the lessons, they should accommodate what's special about us, right? What's unique about us, what's different about us, right? Otherwise, we're just going to get the same lessons as everybody else, and that's what we'll be bringing to the table is the same lessons. And in majority rules, right, it's kind of like the same, and there is no true individualism in that, right? Because it's all follow the leader, right? It's all right, just absorbing and holding on to things that might not necessarily resonate with you, right? You take what you resonate with, the rest of it just put it off to the side. I'm not saying throw it away, because that information, even though it's not relevant to you, that it might be touched with beliefs that just don't sit or taste well, or that you can't digest for whatever reason, right? Possibly it's not for you, but it came across your path for a reason. And, a lot of those lessons, right? And for me, it's this idea that, you know, I'm non denominational. And, a lot of people in that I take care of at work, right? That I have interactions with, that they are right religious, they're Christians, but they're so kind and they're so welcoming in my company, right? And we find those ways to get along with each other. I'm not procrastinating on picking this word. Maybe it ties into something that we were talking about, but I said I wasn't going to waste time tonight, but it is what it is. Mm, I make good coffee. It was time for a cup of coffee. It was time for a cup of coffee too. Okay, you guys. First, first perspective of a word that we're going to pick up this week. This is the first time this week that, or first time, right? Since we've been doing this in the past 9 weeks, this is going to be the 10th word that we've picked, and we're going to be on it all week. Here we go. Oh, be good, be good, be good. You guys, we get to work on one of my favorite words. And sometimes it's hard, especially when things, okay, let me tell you what the word is. It's really kind of weird how these things work out. But we got the word believe. Word number 10 is believe / belief, right? So we're going to be on this topic all week. So can we talk about my first perspective? Let's talk about, oh my goodness, this is going to be good. Because the first thing that comes in, right? Believe Nation. Let me tell you a story. I guess it's story time tonight. 2014. I started on YouTube. I just applied to be on Big Brother Canada. But I didn't have any media. I didn't have any following. It was very lacking. And one of the things in consideration on getting into Big Brother is a little. You don't have to have a huge following, but you have to have some kind of following to get you started, right? And digital phones, I just started using the camera on the digital phone. I think it was a Galaxy 2 that I had, a Galaxy 2, and I loved that phone. And I used to do these camping trips, and I would go off by myself, and I had a favorite camping spot. I used to like really secluded out in the bush. My campsite was right on a cliff looking out over the lake. Oh, just loved it. Black Lake. And I took that camera and I filmed my audition video with the camera. And, I practiced a few times the audition. I posted the audition. If you go back into my content, you'll probably find the audition that I made because, right, I posted it on my Instagram, actually. You'll find it on my Instagram. I'm not sure. Maybe I posted it here on YouTube, right? There was a time when it was crazy time, but let's get back to my story. I started on YouTube, and that was in 2014. I started my Instagram at the same time. And in that process, I really, I was seeing people getting really big and they were making lots of money. They were living their dream life. All I wanted was an RV and a land and a house, and I wanted to better my life. And, I never had that opportunity to better myself, or at least I didn't think so, right? I had already been divorced by that time. Well, I wasn't divorced yet, but I had already been separated from my husband for at least, I think, maybe 6 or 7 years. I was just starting to come out of that breakup. It really hurt me. I thought it was forever. Nobody ever in my family ever got divorced. I don't know anybody in my family before me who was divorced, and it was a very difficult. I thought it was forever. And I started my YouTube channel, and things started happening in my life. I wasn't woken up to any of these ideas. It was a few years after that when I started, but I never gave up. I just kept working on my YouTube channel, and I started taking lessons and I had creator, oh my goodness, Nick, what was his name? Oh, he was such a nice guy, good Christian man. He taught people how to become successful on YouTube, right? And I was with him, and I was with another gentleman, Nick Niman too, and I really wanted to work in the background and right, but I started my YouTube channel to build media, and I learned to share my adventures out on the back road and me out on the farms and going through the farm fields and exploring the abandoned houses. I got into my house. I only did it to build my following up so I could reapply for Big Brother Canada. But I loved YouTube so much, right? Lots of times we have to explore, lots of times we have to experiment before we can find those things that we really truly loved. And I loved being part of the YouTube community. I loved being part of the Google community, right? I loved the way the lessons were coming to me because I never did well in school, right? I was too hyper vigilant to be in a group setting because, right, the spitballs, right, the nasty things that nasty kids do, right, when they're young. And it wasn't just the kids, it was the adults, and it was what was going on at home. But that's a story for another day. But the idea was I wanted to be in YouTube. And as I moved forward and as I was trying things out and failing, I come across different content creators and different kinds of help. And I really started to discover that I really wanted to work in the background. I started thinking about, Cindy, you're getting mature, right? By this time, I was already in my 50s. I said, you're getting mature now, right? You love YouTube, but you love Google, but you don't have to be the star yourself. Right, right? You don't have to be. And because I love the analytics and the brand building, and the learning how to right do the channel art and I was learning so much that I really thought that I would really be good as a brand manager, and I thought it would be something I would be really really good at, once I wasn't exploring abandoned farms and abandoned houses. Because how many abandoned farms and abandoned houses will I be able to come across? Eventually, I'm going to hit a ceiling in that, and there won't be any more abandoned farms and abandoned houses. What am I going to do then? Not thinking that I had anything else to bring to the table, but I wanted to be working in the background. I wanted to work for a big YouTuber, but not just any big YouTuber. I wanted to work for somebody who was helping YouTubers. That's what I wanted to do. That was my dream, but I wasn't quite sure of who I wanted to help, right? Who to approach. And because I was my main guy, he was giving me my lessons, right? And oh, creator, oh my goodness, I can't remember. He was such a sweet man, good Christian man too, and right, I loved the way how he He brought up his family. I love the father that he was. I love the husband that he was, and that means a lot. That's the integrity of somebody, and I wanted to work for somebody with integrity, right? But I like Nick Nimmin too, and because I was such a big YouTube fan, he worked with with people that were big YouTubers, and right, and I was considering him too, but I didn't know how to approach these people. And right, I wasn't really right. I could manage, I could feel my way around, but I wasn't an expert in YouTube. It's one of that idea, you know a little bit of everything, but not an expert on anything. And it was kind of that idea. But right, I was determined. I was gonna work for a big YouTuber. So this is where this word, we're working on the word this week, believe. So I was in my lessons one day, and I'll find out what his name is tomorrow. It's been so long since I've been with him, but he was a great teacher. But you only resonate with, or don't resonate with, what you resonate with or what you don't resonate with. And I even then, not even awake to some of these ideas, but that movement was going on. You could clearly see that there was movement going on because the action was there, right? I was trying to survive. I was trying to keep my YouTube going. I wanted to be part of the YouTube community. I wanted to be a part of the Google community, right? So the dreams were still there, but they were looking so much different. So this gentleman, he was having sessions where he would have group of his students paying students, right? His clients would come in, and there would probably be 10 or 12 of them on the screen, and that's when Zoom just started. And each one of them would be a character at their home or on their own workstations or whatever, and they would be having discussions on different topics and stuff, and he would host them and right introduce each one of these characters. And there was this gentleman, I didn't know his name at the time. He was just an a-hole as far as I was concerned, right? And this gentleman was talking, and he just lost it. You could just see the fury and the anger because he was trying to course correct a misunderstanding that this other gentleman had, right? And I'm going, oh my goodness, who are you to raw at somebody, right? Not really understanding, but understanding a little bit better now. But in the moment, I didn't understand, and I thought, oh my goodness, right? That was that was not nice. I'm thinking, and I carried on with my lessons. But every once in a while, because of the networks that I was in, this guy would pop up, right? And I popped into one of his videos, and he had the top 10, and this gentleman's name was Evan Carmichael. And I popped into one of his top 10 videos. He does the top 10 videos on different thought leaders and stuff. And you can even see I wasn't even awoke then, right, to any of these ideas. But I was being led, right? I was moving with my emotions and my curiosity, right? And somehow I landed on a top 10 video of his. And I got right into it, and I went, oh my goodness. And that video made me so hungry for understanding. And here I was going again, pivoting, right? And I ended up being a content munchie, I think I probably still am, right? I became a content munchie. And I'm just plugging my phone in there just in case I lose power. I don't know how long this is going to go. Um, and I became a content munchie, and I discovered mindset. And I took those lessons, and one lesson led to another, to another, to another. And I come to understand the course correction and the reasoning why, somebody was being course corrected, because it wasn't, you know, out of meanness, right? Or it wasn't because somebody was an a hole. It was because somebody was going down the wrong branch and needed to be course corrected and brought back to the main trunk of the tree, right? Or they might have been lost in a misunderstanding or a lesson that wasn't meant for them and be wandering off in the wrong direction. These are just lessons I picked up along the way. Found it very curious. I had lots of questions as to why I was so curious about this content, right? And in actuality, I thought it was part of the prerequisite. I thought it was something I had to do in order to be a YouTuber. I thought I had to take these lessons. And so I was taking these lessons and I was just getting more involved in the lessons, but at the same time, right? Working my brand and applying those lessons to my brand. And I finally said, this is too strange. There's too many coincidences, and I don't see other YouTubers, because I considered myself a YouTuber. I was already at it for years, failing terribly at turning my brand into a business, right? And Evan Carmichael was an entrepreneur, and I think part of it was that idea of I wanted to be able to turn my channel into a business, and I made that decision that he was going to be, right? That big YouTuber that I wanted to work for, because he had values that I appreciated, right? He had that same idea of never giving up, right? And here's where the believe comes in. This idea of your one word. And his one word was believe. And I was having a hard time believing in a lot of the things that were just happening in my life, that were happening to me. And it was very scary, because at the same time as I'm getting deep into the lessons, well, that's when you guys, right, started floating in, and right, and I started sharing, and you guys realized, right, that Cindy's go. You guys knew before I did. I was totally clueless, right? And then I decided, well, I've got too many questions on this. I'm not understanding my compulsion, because it was a compulsion, right? I don't understand my compulsion to some of these ideas and to some of these characters, and why am I so drawn to thought leadership? Why am I pivoting to this? And I said, I need some answers, right? And because I had already made this attachment to the content that Evan Carmichael was making, right? Well, it felt comfortable, it felt safe, and I decided that, right, let's try a workshop out, right? I'm going to do a workshop. And because he helped me out so much, he helped me out so much in what I was doing, because, right, my channel looked different, but Prairie Dodgers was still going. And we're going all the way back to 2017 when I started watching his content. But I didn't actually first go to a workshop until 2019. So for quite a while, I was making movement, right? Totally unaware that I was making any kind of movement at all. I never had a passport. He decided he was going to make a tour of the states, some cities in the states, and I decided that, I was going to go to one of these cities, and I was going to go to one of his workshops, and I was going to get an answer. So I took the city that was closest to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and that city happened to be Minneapolis, and you guys saw that adventure, right? And I went to that workshop. It was an incredible experience having that trip. It was incredible experiencing using reverse engineering and achieving some goals that I set out for myself. I was totally gasted that I managed on the verge of losing my apartment, not having a job, having a car that, right, I couldn't afford, have an apartment I couldn't afford. So much going bad in my life that somehow, right, I was working at the time. I had no idea I was going to get the time off, right? So I arranged it so that I could just have an extra day off. I had a job that allowed me 3 days off, and I decided short trip to Minneapolis, I could manage that. And I reversed engineered that trip, and I ended up in Minneapolis on the most amazing trip. A trip that I hadn't done. I hadn't been into the States since my dad died, right? I never moved out of Winnipeg since my father passed away, and yet I went to 11 different elementary schools. It was big change for me. It was making choices and, right, and going with that movement. It was scary, but it was exciting at the same time. And when I left that event, I was determined. I was going to do something with my brand. I didn't know what, but, right, I was convinced. And at that point, I woke up the very next day believing, believing in something I didn't understand, but believing that if I continued on the path that I was on, that things would be revealed to me. I woke up that day in 2019 to all kinds of different ideas about myself, about the relationships that I was in, about the influence I had been given, right? And uh, that I had approached, right? That I had willingly taken on, right? And those are the people that we surround ourselves with. And I wanted to do better by myself, right? My brand was still struggling, right? There was no reason to believe. Not at that time, because at that point my life crashed. But because the lessons were already coming in, by that time I had already realized that the crash in my life was necessary, because those were one of the cranks to get me on the right path where I could actually pick up some positive lessons. My introduction to believe, because in all truth, there was no belief in my life. Nothing. Nothing. Right? I didn't believe in myself. Right? My relationships had fallen apart, crashed, burned. Right? I was just coming out of that state that I was in. And in that moment of, right, it was actually the trip of driving home from Minneapolis that, right, in those 24 hours, and they were the craziest 24 hours. But even though those were the craziest 24 hours, I would have to say it was crazy town for months after that, for months and months. And it was really, really difficult. But in that time, right, I really, truly did understand this word belief. And even though I didn't have that belief in myself, I truly did find a place where I felt that I might be able to find that belief in myself reflected in the belief, right, of others. and it was it was my number one lesson, you guys, was in belief. It was my number one lesson because it happened on my number one day of waking up to any of these ideas, right? My brand is still going. We kind of looked at it. I started on YouTube in 2014. It's now 2023. This time next year, it will have been 10 years, and my channel's still going, right? And in the category that I'm in, I suspect we're not going to have gazillions of people, but you never know because I never knew where anything was going. I had no idea. If you would ask me, I wouldn't have guessed in a million years that I would be sitting here right now having these kind of conversations. But these kind of conversations are very important because it's through the perspectives that we're going to be able to, if they're voiced, if they're practiced in our movement, right, that we're going to be able to recognize, right, the people that we're supposed to be with. Like my friend Nancy, I see you, dear. Okay, I'm coming in. Kathy's here. Nancy, let me read what Nancy's saying. I don't know what she's saying, but I see my name there. Cindy, that's where you and I are so different, lol. I always believed in myself and I never cared what people thought. Even to this day, I am starting to get stronger. Well, you don't have to convince me of that, Nancy. You don't, not in the very least. It's people like you, Nancy, that inspire me to keep going because, right? Who's the better example of never giving up, right? Getting yourself up, dusting off your knees, finding another way, right? Finding solutions, never giving up on yourself, right? 100% Nancy. I agree 100% that that's a special gift that you have, and each one of us has special gifts. But that's the thing. Unless we're having these kind of conversations, how will we ever discover that in each other? Because we'll just keep it to ourselves because, right? Those vulnerable parts of us are vulnerable for a reason, right? We don't share them for a reason. It's because, right, misery loves company. And miserable looks for those vulnerable spots, right? So it doesn't matter how many times Nancy goes down, right? Because in that honesty and being yourself, right? In sharing in all of us, because every time that you have gone down, you've been with us, right? We've known every single time. And as much as you guys have held me up, right? I would like to think that we've done the same for each other and that I contribute to a little bit that way, right? But that belief, I never had that in myself. I never had anybody have those talks with me before. Maybe that was part of the attachment in the mentorship that I needed, was that I needed somebody who believed in me, right? And it's important to have people believe in you because, for the most part, highly sensitives and empaths, right? We don't have a lot of belief in ourselves. And there are other groups that I have to include in that. I always say highly sensitives and empaths, but I mean, maybe you're codependent, right? Where you look for others to take care of your problems or to give you advice or tell you what to do or tell you what to go or tell you what to say, right? They need they need this too. There are lots of categories there, right? They call them personality disorders, but they're not. It's all trauma, right? And yes, there are personality disorders, but a lot of times trauma is mixed up in the labeling of that, right? And trauma is resolvable, whether it's complex trauma or immediate trauma, it is. But it takes talking, time, and it takes crying. And it takes crying. And lots of us, right? We only give ourselves that certain amount of time to mourn what's difficult, and then we're expected to put it up on the shelf and carry on, right? Or forget even. Or just take it down on special occasions like Christmas or Easter and give it some love and give it some memory and give it some smiles and some heart, and then you just the very next day you put it back up on the shelf again, right? So my sister just messaged me there. She distracted me in that flow. But that happens, and I give myself that allowance. It's part of Instagram, and it's part of that learning process in trying to see how fast that we can come back onto that main branch before, right, we lose track again, right? I know, because on Instagram, people would request to come in and have a chit chat. And as soon as I would see that red button, it would distract me from the flow that I was in. And then, right, I wouldn't have any choice but to bring in whoever was requesting to come in because I couldn't, right, stick with the flow anyway. But it's getting much better, but it only gets much better because of the lessons, right? And as I take in the lessons and absorb them, then I believe that possibly I got that lesson. I got it on my own steam, right? Right? With me searching it out myself without somebody drilling it into my head. Here, take this. This is a truth that I could go off and feel things out for myself and believe what I wanted to believe in, right? And the most thing that I wanted to believe in was myself. I wanted to believe in myself. It's been a process. And maybe I slip back, right? Maybe there's triggers are still there on occasion, but I would have to say they're probably 80% better than what they were. Because if it wasn't at least that, I wouldn't be sitting here right now having these types of conversations, because these are very serious conversations that not a lot of people are going to get. And like I said, resonate with what you resonate with, right? But leave your mind open to the possibility that there might be something in there. And even though there's nothing there right now, right? Don't toss it off to the side. Don't knock it off as junk, right? You're not believing it right now. I made movement and I believed. I had no beliefs. I didn't even have belief in myself. And I just moved forward anyway. And then that belief came with the lessons. At the very least, I believe in myself. Doesn't necessarily mean anybody else is going to believe in me. But I don't think that is necessary, right? Because I think the biggest lesson for me was to learn to believe in myself. Because if I didn't believe in myself, I wouldn't give myself those lessons. I wouldn't have taken action on some of those lessons that I so desperately needed, and I did desperately need them. This word believe, right? I am part of Believe Nation, right? I am part of Believe Nation. But I have to do this journey on my own, right? I have to show people with me being the evidence, because not everybody has the same lessons. I got lessons that served me very well. Working in restaurants, working in nightclubs and bars, right? Having those friends that I was able to connect with in my life and be included, right? And not even included, but highly sought after for my company in those groups. It's not a commonality. It's a little bit unique, right? And I get it. I have those lessons. But I think because I have those lessons, it's more of a responsibility to show up here, right? Cindy likes to yibber yabber. Cindy finds people to be very interesting. I see a lot of myself, I see a lot of my problems, and I see a lot of the things that I get right. And I believe I can do this, right? And I believe I can do this in a way that I can make progress, that I can fill my cup up, right? And even possibly, optimistically, have something to give in that process right now, right? And when that froth is overflowing, to be able to go about it in a bigger, grander, majestic, kinder, right? In more influential way than what I'm doing right now. But it's not going to happen unless I take those lessons. And I'm only taking those lessons because I think, I believe that I can absorb those lessons and I can make those lessons work for me and I can make those lessons work for others. And I believe that. I believe that. Really strange how these words and the patterning and the sequencing that these words are coming in. I don't think that's a story I've told very often, right? Maybe it's that idea of having to explain, right? Why I didn't, right? Achieve that dream of supporting somebody else in their dream. And I just don't do that just to support people in their dreams like that, right? Because I had to learn those lessons in codependency, right? I had to learn those lessons in being independent and making choices and taking action on those choices in order to make some movement forward. I needed those lessons in believe because I wasn't going to make any movement at all. I wasn't going to absorb any of the lessons. Might I might have even given up if it wasn't for that one lesson of belief that makes it possible for me to be sitting here right now, jibber jabbing about these kind of topics. Hopefully, in a way that makes it easy for people to absorb, right? Not necessarily understand, but at the least absorb so that maybe when you come across somebody else talking on a similar subject, right? Maybe that person's the one that's supposed to help you believe, right? That you can do it. I think I'm here just to help you feel comfortable that it can be done, but also to be able to see the evidence that it can be done, right? Believe. That's a great word this week. I'm going to come at it with a different perspective because believe is not something that I had in my life. And maybe we could talk a little bit about my life and my lack of belief, right? And where that came from. Might be a heavy topic tomorrow, but maybe we'll be up to it. Okay, you guys. I know you'll fight to no end. 100%, Nancy. You're so amazing in that aspect of your life and never change that way. And I don't suspect that you ever will, right? Nobody could ever convince you otherwise, right? There were gifts along the way, 100%. And we have every right, every expectation, right? And every responsibility to move forward with that. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer. I was putting up shelves, right? Cleaning up and organizing, getting ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow's the day where I unplug everything. I unplug everything. I take the computer apart. I clean it. I have a cat, right? So I want to make sure, right? Today I tried to reboot my computer, but I got to make some space on it first because it's got to hold a window for 24 hours before I can delete an old Windows, right? So I've got to make some space on my computer so that my PC to do that. I want to get this whole area all set up and ready so that when my laptop gets back to me, right, we can carry on where we left off, right? Knowing that I didn't miss a beat, that I showed up. And at the same time, have a comfortable workstation to start editing those videos, you guys. I haven't even gotten into those videos. Oh my goodness, it'll be snowing and you'll still see me walking along the water edges and through the forest and right. But maybe that'll give us something to look forward to for the spring. I'm not going to stress out about it. It is what it is, and I'm doing the very best that I can, and I'm proud in that. And I believe, right, that we are going to be up and running in no time. Okay, you guys, that's my good cheer, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.